Well, that was unexpected. Yeah, so last week we did a little bit of work on the OBS. We did some of the grill work, we did some door handle work, we did something a little different on those. It's something we've done in the past, and we do it because people think it's really cool. So obviously that's a good reason to keep doing it. But when I do these videos, I take some of those shorts and I'll post them on Instagram and Facebook. If you follow along with us over there, we've got a really big reach. We get a lot of views over there, so that's kind of our go-to with a lot of the social media stuff. And man, did that one blow up. So we put the button in behind the Kindig handle where it's going to power an actuator and open the door. It's kind of like a shaved door handle, but you still have a handle and you can just walk up and push the button. Wow, 13 million views in 2 days, and it's still climbing as we speak. So really unbelievable. But I've noticed with doing a lot of this stuff and being a content creator and all that to get views is you kind of don't give all the information. So when we post over there, we're not giving everything. We're just kind of like just enough to maybe scratch your head a little bit, what's going on, especially with people who obviously aren't car builders or don't know a lot about cars. They're just like, what? I don't understand. And those always seem to blow up. So with 13 million views, you get a lot of questions. We got a lot of obviously really good feedback. And then we got, not so much with the questions of what in the world's going on. I don't know how you're going to do that. That's not going to work, blah, blah, blah. We're going to go over those questions today because I found some of them to be quite funny. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to get some work done on this thing again. So bringing you the OBS 2 weeks in a row. You're welcome. I've been listening. We're going to work on the dash. We're going to see if we can get the gauges in. And also, we're going to build some filler panels in the door jamb. That way, if something were to ever happen, it's going to be really, really easy to work on this thing without having to pull a bunch of stuff apart. So let's go over some of these questions. Wow, how'd you make those door handles? We didn't. They're Kindig door handles. You can go buy those. I was asked that probably about 1,500 times. Your door's going to flood and fill with water because of those Kindig door handles. What are you going to do? We're not going to get it in the water. Whoa, you copied Tesla's design. They have a problem with the freezing weather and all the recalls. What are you going to do? We're in Tennessee. We don't have any of that. That button you used, it's going to wear out. What are you going to do? Your tires wear out. What do? You replace it. You should really put a stop on that because you're going to bust the button. Yes, it will have a stop on it with rubber. It won't bust the button. Whoa, that button's going to crack the first time you do it. No, it's not. We've got cars that have been done for years. You idiot, it still takes 2 hands to open the door. No, it doesn't. When you push the button, the popper will push the door open. When the battery goes dead, how are you going to pop the hood? The hell do I need under this hood for? My OBS's battery's under the hood. Ours won't be. We make all of our batteries accessible. This one probably somewhere toward the back. Not only that, we put a battery cutoff on it or a circuit breaker, so that way your battery's probably never going to die either. Then we also wire in a tender spot, so you can always plug in the tender to keep your battery up. But you'll be able to put a jump box on it and still get in. But Jeremy, what if all that fails? Well, then guess what we'll do? We'll go pull the safety just like you would in a new Corvette, and you'll still be able to get in. Oh, I'm sorry. You don't get to know where the safety is. Well, Jeremy, how are you going to lock the doors? That's another thing you're not going to know about because we're going to hide that too. Well, Jeremy, you've got that wired through the positive side, through the switch. You should do it through the negative side. Yeah, sure, we can, we could, whatever. It's probably not going to make a difference. Stock door handles are cooler. Well, I didn't even come close to covering all the questions. Those were just a few of them, but they were asked a lot. But so, I'm sorry, I got a kick out of it. YouTube's not near as bad. You guys, you aren't even in the ballpark. You guys ask sensible questions. Instagram is pretty good too. Pretty sensible stuff. I don't know what the hell's going on over at Facebook. That's just a different level of, I don't know how to say it. We're not going to say it. We're going to worry about the OBS now. So here's what we're going to do now. So when we open the door, you just saw like there's an opening to that button. Okay, so at the end of the day, like that's more than likely the button we're going to use because we've used it in the past. Bob also, I'll show you right here, there was an Impala that we did all the body and paint on that Bob finished up, and same thing with that. That's a push button Impala. It's done the same way. It's been done 6 or 7 years now. No issues, nothing, same buttons. There's not probably going to be a problem. The other thing, there was a lot of stuff with the shaved door handles. I think shaved door handles just have a negative light shined on it anyway. I think people who've had shaved door handles, what ends up happening differently from how we do it to try to get in it, you know, you're making sure you're setting yourself up for success, which is why we're doing all the stuff with the battery we do so the battery doesn't die, or why we do safety so you can make sure you still get in it and stuff like that. A lot of people shave the doors. You know, you go park it in your garage and then it sits for 3 months and yeah, you can't get in it. The battery's dead, you don't have a safety, what do you do? And it's just had a negative, you know, just a negative outlook on it. If you set yourself up to be able to still get in it, it's more than likely never gonna fail. I've got a car down there that's had these same actuators in it, which we won't use on here. There's a different style we'll use that take almost no amperage to be able to open them, and these take a lot more power. But the car that I have, 20 years it's been done, no issues with it. All the trucks I know of, any other cars we've done, no issues with them. But we're also making sure you can still get in them. So I think that's the big thing with even when the guys have a negative outlook on the shaved door handles. It's, yeah, I mean, it could be a pain, but you've got to set yourself up to be able to get in the truck. So what we're going to do now is, now that we have this opening, we're going to make a panel. So we're just going to make a panel that's going to go right here and cover this hole up. So you can see this door has a lot of contour in it. There's a lot of bends going on right here. It's not really necessary because the jamb of the truck is completely flat. So there's a lot of room in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this panel. We're going to fill this up. Either have it where there's 4 nice screws or 4 nice bolts, or maybe we'll mimic these that hold the latch and everything on. And then that way, if anything were to ever happen with this button, if it were to break or go bad or a wire gets cut or anything happens, we'll be able just to pop this off, change it right here. Won't have to worry about getting the door panel off and trying to get up in here to work on it or anything like that. So when we do stuff that's, I don't know if you'd call this more complicated. A lot of people look at it and think it's complicated. It's actually very simple. But we want to make it to where when he takes it home, if something were to happen, he can easily repair this himself and not go, hey, Jerry, I need to bring it back over there so you can get everything apart and get up in there and fix it. I want to make it where anybody can work on it. So even though it may be more complicated, it's so simple to work on it that if anything were to ever happen, it's only going to take a couple minutes to repair it. So we're making it really simple. So let's go ahead. We'll start making a template for this, and we'll figure out exactly what we want to make here, and we'll get after it. All right, so that was quick, easy, simple thing to do. We made this panel that's basically going to be removable. You can access your button or any of the other hardware that's in there with the door handle. Makes it really, really easy to work on. Now, this is not the hardware we're going to run, but we're just going to use that temporarily. We've got a few other pieces throughout the truck that we've got to figure out how we're going to mount those as well. So I want everything to kind of match. So until we figure that out, just a couple Phillips screws will do just fine. So now we've got the door jamb section finished up, or at least as far as we can go. We're going to turn our attention to the dash. So if you go back some videos, you'll see where we made the main dash portion. Then we've got another video where we're making the panel that's going to house the gauges. So that's where we left off with that. So this isn't mounted or anything. So what we're going to do now is we're going to figure out first how we're going to mount this down. So this is the lens of our gauge. So this gives you a good idea of what the gauge design looks like. That's going to fit into here just like so. Got a couple of panels we've got to weld in along the bottom, and then we actually have to make the portion where the gauge itself will mount in here. What we're going to do now is we've only got one cleco holding this down. I've got it all measured out. I've got it where it needs to be. I think what we're going to do is we're going to weld studs onto this. They're going to go down through the main part of the dash. That way you can unbolt this whole thing and take it out if you need to. The way we built the dash, if you get your head under there, there's a ton of room to work. So that's good. We made it easy to work on. So we're going to throw a couple of more clecos in here, drill a couple of pilot holes where we think we want those studs to run through there, and we should be able to go from there and get it mounted, and then we'll start addressing how we're going to actually mount the gauges in here. So see if we can get this mounted. So for you guys that have been asking about these, I've had a lot of questions about these recently, or if you're new to metalwork, these are great. These are called clecos, and what we use these for, they're a temporary fastener that we use to put two pieces of metal together to see what they're going to look like, to either hold it there to weld it, without having to run a screw down into it. Also, when you run a screw, you know, take a little bit of chance of going too far, you're warping it a little bit or whatever. These work really, really great. They're really easy to use. You can buy them online. A bunch of different companies sell them. They come with these pliers. Basically, how they work is they're spring loaded. They set inside the pliers. You can push the plunger, and as this comes out, basically you can put it down through an 1/8 inch hole, and then when you let it back up, they open up and they grab the metal underneath and pull the two together. So really handy little tool to have if you're doing any metal fab. Okay, so now we've got those in place so it's not going to move on us. We've got it exactly where we want it. I'm just going to lay my head under the dash and make sure that we're not drilling through any of the bracing down there. And I want a stud pretty much just on the inside of each one of these clecos. So we'll drill a hole down through there, we'll drill a hole through the dash, we'll run a stud up through there, and then we'll weld that stud in. And that should get us where we can just bolt it in from the bottom. We'll do the same thing up front. You also have to think too, it's not a big deal to do this because the dash and this panel as well are getting wrapped in leather. So they're gonna get 1/4 inch foam. That foam's gonna get blocked down like a filler. So if we have anything like a weld, or it's not gonna be a big deal at all. So let me lay under there, we'll see what we've got. The bracing I'm looking for, if you go back and watch the first video where we built the dash, we built a skeleton first. So it's 1/4 inch rod that's all built to mimic the dash, and then we built the sheet metal around that skeleton. So I'm just making sure that we're not drilling down through that because it'd just be a pain, and our stud, you know, our drill bit's not gonna be happy trying to go down through that. So just wanted to make sure we're clearing it, which we are. So we're going to come just to the inside of these, probably about 1/2 inch. We've got those holes drilled. We can go ahead and pull this piece off because we need to open up the hole that's under it. We're going to probably do like a 1/4 20 bolt. So this can stay just the pilot hole so we see where it's at, but we need to open up that hole underneath. All right, so with that hole being a little bit bigger, that's gonna do one good thing for us anyway. It's gonna give us a little bit of adjustment. That way, if we do get it in here and we see down the road, like, we need to move this thing over just a hair, we'll be able to have the room to do that. The front's gonna be a little more difficult to get the stud where we want it to be, plus we have to make sure we're behind where the gauges are going. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the rear finished up, and And we'll start probably playing around with the gauge panel right here before we figure out what we're gonna do on this front one. All right, so now we're ready to weld all this together. So what I did was we've got 1/4 bolts. We ground the tops down a little bit to get a good weld on that. We've got our adjustment in there. I ended up adding one in the middle, so we've got 3. We're gonna bolt in across the back. And basically I positioned them forward enough as that this gauge piece is running upwards, just to fill the gap. So basically now, when we put this back on and we cleco it down, where we drilled these holes in this panel, it's touching the tops of the bolt head. So we can just weld this piece straight to the tops of the bolts and we'll be good for the studs there. So let's get this clecoed back in, weld it all up. Bolted in, looking good. All that worked out absolutely perfect. So what we're gonna do now is we've got a line drawn in here where our gauges are gonna sit. They're really thin too. What we're gonna do is drop back about another 1/2 inch, maybe an inch or so behind that line where we know they're gonna sit. All I'm gonna do is make a tab off the side. We're gonna weld that tab on there and then we're gonna be able to bolt it straight down through there. Should be pretty simple, so let's get that. Into the tab, that way it's just taking the nuts off from the bottom of the dash. So I'm going to do that real quick and then we'll have that part finished up, move on to the gauges. So I went ahead and I got the template all fit into the gauge housing. Had to add just a couple of pieces to it to get our little hump there. And it fits really nice. So we're gonna go ahead and transfer this over to steel, get that cut out. What this is gonna be is a fixed piece inside this gauge housing. Our gauges will actually mount to this piece, so we'll probably just end up welding that in as well. Then what's gonna happen is the gauges will go in and the lens plate to go over the top. They'll be out here a little ways, so it should look pretty cool. And then we'll obviously finish off the edge of this piece. But I'm liking how this is shaping up. All right, let's transfer this over to steel and see if we can get that mounted in here. All right, so now we're tacked in, all that looks good. Obviously that'll get fully welded and finished out. These are our gauges, so we can't mount them today, unfortunately. What I'm trying to do is it's got some really small hardware, and I want to put some nut certs in here just to be able to bolt it straight into that panel. We'll also have to make a spacer for the back to be able to space it off of that panel just a little bit as well, but it should sit right inside there and look really good. But I'm digging it. That's going to look really cool. You can check out how the rendering looks right here, so we're pretty similar to that, and I'm liking it. Well, we made some really good progress today. We got the door jambs finished up. We got the gauges just about ready to mount. We got a lot of work done on the dash. So as soon as we get the nut certs in that fit this hardware, we'll be able to mount these gauges in there, and then we can actually weld everything up and have that portion of it buttoned up. So making good headway, really excited about this one. I think next week though, we might swap gears a little bit. I think we're gonna hop over to the Toyota mini truck that's LS powered. We got a ton of new parts in, and I've just kind of been wrapping my head around how we're going to approach this one. We're doing it a little bit different than we would normally do our full build. So every time I think I'm ready to start on it, I got to really kind of think about what we're doing. So I think I've got a good game plan for it now. So hopefully next week we'll be able to hop over to that. We're either going to start metal fab in the engine compartment, or we're going to go ahead and pull the drivetrain out and start getting everything refinished and ready. But there's just there's a lot to do on it, so I'll have it figured out by the next time I see you guys. But anyway, appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you next time.